Part 1. He had everything people usually pray for. A steady job, a warm apartment, friends who checked in. Yet every night he felt strangely empty. Not sad. Not broken. Just hollow. If you've ever smiled in front of others but felt lost when you were alone, stay with this story. Because sometimes the most powerful change begins when we finally let go. Aaron often wondered when the emptiness first settled inside him. It wasn't sudden. It didn't arrive with a dramatic moment or a single heartbreak. It came quietly, like a shadow growing longer at the end of the day. From the outside, his life looked complete. He worked in a tall glass building downtown, wore clean shirts, paid his bills on time, and laughed at the right moments. People admired his stability. "You're doing great," they'd say. He always nodded and replied, "Yeah, I'm good." What he never said was how heavy the silence felt when he came home. Every evening followed the same routine. Keys into the ceramic bowl by the door. Shoes neatly aligned. Lights on. Then a pause. He would stand there, listening to the hum of the refrigerator, the distant noise of traffic, and the quiet ache in his chest. He filled his nights with sound. TV shows playing in the background, music on repeat, anything to avoid sitting alone with his thoughts. But emptiness doesn't disappear when ignored. Wait. One Saturday afternoon, while cleaning a kitchen cabinet he hadn't opened in years, his hand brushed against something cold and smooth. Cup. Plain white, slightly chipped at the rim, with a thin crack running down its side. He frowned, trying to remember where it came from. No memory surfaced. He turned it in his hands, noticing how light it felt. "Me. Why am I still keeping you?" he asked quietly, almost embarrassed to be talking to an object. He considered throwing it away, but something stopped him. Instead, he placed it on the table and sat across from it, elbows resting near its base. The room felt unusually still. As he stared at the cup, a thought surfaced, soft but clear. Maybe I feel empty because I keep holding on to things that no longer hold anything for me. The idea unsettled him. He thought about old conversations he replayed in his head, memories he refused to release, expectations he kept carrying even when they hurt. He had believed holding on meant strength, that letting go meant losing something important. But sitting there, facing that cracked, useless cup, he felt a quiet truth settle in his chest. Empty cups aren't meant to be worshipped. They're meant to be refilled or set down. For the first time in a long while, Aaron didn't rush to distract himself. He stayed with the feeling. It didn't vanish, but it softened just enough to breathe. Something had shifted. Not fixed, not healed, but named. Part 2. The next morning, Aaron did something he couldn't fully explain. He placed the cracked cup carefully into his bag before leaving for work. It felt strange, almost childish, but something about it mattered. As if the cup was a reminder he wasn't ready to forget yet. The day unfolded like any other. Emails, meetings, small talk by the coffee machine. Around noon, instead of eating lunch at his desk, Aaron walked toward the river that flowed behind the office complex. The sky was pale, the air cool. He sat on a bench facing the water and placed the cup beside him. The river moved without hesitation, carrying leaves, twigs, and reflections of passing clouds. Aaron watched it for a long time, feeling his thoughts slow down. "How do you keep going?" he whispered, though he wasn't sure who he was speaking to. A voice answered from nearby. "Because it doesn't try to hold what passes through it." An older man sat a few feet away, skipping stones across the surface. His movements were calm, practiced. Aaron glanced at him, surprised. "I wasn't talking to you," he said, half smiling. The man chuckled. "Rivers don't answer back much. Someone has to." He nodded toward the cup. "That's an unusual thing to bring out here." Aaron hesitated. "I don't really know why I have it." "That usually means there's a reason," the man replied. They sat in silence for a moment. The river kept flowing, indifferent and steady. Finally the man spoke again. "You know why rivers never feel heavy?" Aaron shook his head. "Because they let go," the man said. "The moment they try to keep everything, they stop moving." The words hit Aaron harder than he expected. He looked down at the cup, then back at the water. He thought about the weight he carried every day. Old regrets, unfinished goodbyes, people he loved but no longer spoke to. He had been holding them tightly, afraid that letting go would erase what they meant. "What if I let go?" Aaron asked quietly. "And there's nothing left?" The man smiled, gentle and understanding. "Then you finally make room." That afternoon, Aaron returned home feeling unsettled, but lighter. He pulled an old box from under his bed, one he hadn't opened in years. Inside lay a worn diary, its pages yellowed, its cover creased from use. It belonged to a version of himself that no longer existed. He opened it slowly. Words spilled out, hopes, promises, fears written during a time when his heart had been fully open. A relationship, a future imagined and lost. His chest tightened as memories rushed back, sharp and familiar. But this time something was different. Alongside the pain was exhaustion. "I'm tired," he whispered into the quiet room. Tired of holding grief like proof. Tired of carrying memories like they were still happening. He closed the diary gently. Letting go didn't mean forgetting. It meant honoring what was, without letting it control what is. For the first time, Aaron understood that some pain stays alive only because we keep feeding it. Part 3. That night, Aaron stood alone in his kitchen, the lights dim, the city glowing faintly through the window. The cracked white cup sat in front of him on the counter. He filled it slowly with water and watched as thin droplets began to escape through the long fracture in its side. The water didn't rush out. It leaked patiently, quietly, like a truth revealing itself when no one is watching. He didn't rush to stop it. Instead, he leaned against the counter and observed. No matter how much water he poured in, the cup could never hold it all. And for the first time, he didn't feel frustrated by that. He felt calm. "I keep doing this," he said softly to himself. "Trying to fill what can't hold anymore." He thought about the people he kept checking on through old messages, the conversations he replayed late at night, the expectations he placed on memories that belonged to the past. He had been pouring his energy into cracks, hoping they would somehow seal themselves if he tried hard enough. The realization stung, but it also brought relief. Over the next few days, Aaron began noticing how often he held on without questioning why. He reached for his phone out of habit, scrolling through old photos that reopened familiar aches. This time he paused. His thumb hovered over the screen. Then he closed the app. It felt uncomfortable, like loosening a grip that had gone numb. That evening, he deleted messages he had no reason to reread anymore. Not out of anger, not out of bitterness, but out of respect for himself. With each small release, something unexpected happened. The weight in his chest didn't disappear, but it shifted, became lighter, less sharp, as if it no longer needed to scream to be heard. A few days later, he met a friend for dinner. Halfway through the meal, she looked at him carefully. "You seem different," she said. He frowned. "Different how?" "Calmer," she replied. "Like you're not fighting something all the time." Aaron considered her words. "I think I stopped carrying things that weren't mine anymore." She smiled. "That sounds freeing." "It is," he said, surprised by how true it felt. That night, the emptiness returned, but it didn't scare him. He sat on the edge of his bed and let the silence surround him. He didn't turn on music. He didn't reach for distractions. He just listened. In that quiet space, he heard his own thoughts clearly. Not the loud, anxious ones, but the softer truths underneath. He realized how much of his identity had been shaped by loss, by who he used to be rather than who he was becoming. The next morning, Aaron returned to the river with the cup. He stood at the edge, feeling the cool air on his face. His hands trembled slightly as he lowered the cup to the ground. "Thank you," he whispered, not to the cup alone, but to everything it had helped him understand. He didn't throw it away. He didn't smash it. He simply set it down and walked back, leaving it behind without looking over his shoulder. For the first time in years, his chest felt open. Not full. Not fixed. It was free. Part 4. Weeks passed, and life didn't suddenly become perfect. Aaron still woke up to the same alarm, rode the same elevator, and sat at the same desk under fluorescent lights. But something inside him had quietly rearranged itself. The emptiness no longer felt like an enemy. Felt like space. He noticed the change in small moments. When loneliness surfaced in the evenings, he didn't rush to escape it. He sat with it, breathing through the discomfort, letting it rise and fall like a tide. When old memories appeared, they no longer demanded his full attention. He acknowledged them, then let them pass without chasing them down. One night, while cleaning, he found the old diary again. For a brief second, his chest tightened. Then he smiled. He flipped through a few pages, not to reopen wounds, but to honor the person he once was. "You did your best," he whispered, closing it gently. There was no sadness this time. Only gratitude. During a phone call with his mother, she paused mid-sentence. "You sound different," she said. "How so?" Aaron asked. "Peaceful," she replied. "Like you're finally resting." He looked out the window at the evening sky, colors melting into one another. "I think I finally stopped fighting myself," he said. On a quiet Sunday morning, he walked back to the river. The air smelled of rain and earth. As he followed the familiar path, something white caught his eye near the water's edge. A cup. It was still there, resting on its side, collecting rainwater, leaves floating inside it. He felt no urge to pick it up. The river flowed past it effortlessly, unchanged, unbothered. Aaron realized that the cup no longer represented emptiness. It represented understanding. Some things enter our lives to teach us, not to stay with us forever. He stood there for a long moment, listening to the water. He felt a deep sense of gratitude, not for what he had gained, but for what he had allowed himself to release. As he walked away, a quiet thought settled in his mind. Peace doesn't come from filling every empty space. It comes from trusting that emptiness doesn't mean something is missing. Sometimes it means something heavy has finally been set down. For the first time, Aaron believed that truth. And it felt enough. Final part. Aaron didn't mark the change with a celebration or a dramatic decision. There was no moment where he announced to the world that he had healed. Life simply continued, and that was the quiet miracle. On an ordinary morning, he woke up before his alarm. Sunlight slipped through the curtains, soft and unhurried. He lay there for a moment, noticing something unfamiliar. Stillness. Not the heavy silence he once feared, but a gentle calm. His chest felt light, not because it was full, but because it was no longer crowded. As he moved through his day, he realized how much energy he used to spend resisting his own feelings. Now, when sadness came, he let it sit beside him without judgment. When joy appeared, he welcomed it without fear of losing it. He had stopped clinging to moments, stopped demanding permanence from temporary things. One evening, while walking home, he passed a cafe window and caught his reflection. He didn't look different. Same face, same posture. But his eyes were softer, present. He smiled, not for anyone else, just for himself. Later that night, he sat on his balcony with a warm drink, watching the city lights flicker on one by one. He thought about how long he had believed emptiness meant something was wrong with him. How he had tried to fill it with noise, people, memories, and expectations. He finally understood that emptiness was never the problem. It was the message. It was asking him to stop gripping the past so tightly, to stop confusing pain with meaning, to trust that life could move forward without dragging every memory along. Somewhere in his mind, the image of the river returned, flowing, unbothered, free. He realized he didn't need to be fearless. He just needed to be willing to let go. If you're listening to this story right now, feeling that quiet ache inside your chest, know this: you are not broken. You are not weak for feeling empty. Sometimes emptiness appears when your soul is asking for space. Space to breathe. Space to grow. Space to begin again. Letting go doesn't mean erasing your past. It means thanking it for what it taught you and allowing yourself to move forward without its weight. Aaron closed his eyes and breathed deeply. For the first time in a long while, he wasn't waiting for something to complete him. He was already whole, just lighter. And maybe that's the real power of letting go. If this story reached you at a quiet moment, when you're feeling empty or tired of holding on, remember this: sometimes the strongest thing you can do is gently let go. You don't have to fix everything today. You don't have to have all the answers. Just give yourself permission to release what no longer serves your heart. If this story resonated with you, take a moment to like, share, or subscribe to Wordy Tales. Your support helps these stories reach the people who need them most. Until next time, breathe deeply, be kind to yourself, and trust that peace often begins the moment you stop holding on.